Past bullies kids, did you realize you were a bad person during or after the bullying? What made you realize? Mostly getting out of my old environment. I didn't realize it was bullying, it was what I was just used to happening to me, so I thought it was normal. Mean girl during high school. I stopped being an asshat when my friends started gossiping about me. Karma's got a sense of humor. Thought I was funny. Liked making people laugh at others' expense. I never thought about their feelings until I was much older. Now I tell my kids every day before school to be kind and everyone's friend, and to stand up for people. I want them to be good humans. I realized later in life, just thinking back, I thought it was a joke, but I was just being a massive cunt. I have tried to say sorry before, but I was told to fuck off for good reason. These comments are interesting. Reading the bully's thoughts is rewarding. Looking back, I didn't always realize the impact my words or actions had on others at the time. It wasn't until I grew older and started reflecting on how I treated people that I began to understand. What really hit me was hearing someone talk about how bullying had affected their self-esteem. It was a moment where I realized that I had been part of someone else's pain, and it made me rethink a lot about the way I had behaved. I don't think they realize the level of violence they live with. Looking back, I honestly didn't realize I was being a bully in the moment. I thought it was just joking around or trying to fit in. It wasn't until years later, when I saw how my actions had affected others, especially when I ran into someone I used to pick on and saw how uncomfortable they still were around me, that it really hit me. That guilt still weighs on me, and I've made it a point to be more mindful of how I treat people now. I work in child safety and interview a lot of current and former bullies. You're probably not going to get honest answers out of the worst bullies. The people on the fringes, the ones who were bad but not awful, are going to reply. They can often reflect on it. They were abused at home, bullied by others, or just angry at the world for other reasons. The genuine bullies, the super cruel girls or boys, almost never recognize how bad their bullying was. Either they were so deeply traumatized by other stuff that was going on, more intense violence at home or sexual abuse, that their memories just aren't there. Or worse, they don't think they were bullies. They are still bullies. I wouldn't call myself a bully, but I did make a couple of racist remarks about immigrants my first 2 years of high school. I grew up in an extremely conservative and religious household in California. My grandfather and uncle would watch Fox News constantly and raved about how people from Central and South America were ruining the country and stealing all our jobs. A peer who was Mexican straight up called me a racist in front of the entire class. It was humiliating because I did not want to be racist. So, I started to read books about immigrations, memoirs by people who were kids who immigrated from Mexico, like The Circuit, Stories from the Life of a Migrant Child by Francisco Jimenez. I did a 180. I started to debate my grandfather and uncle about their views. I started looking into other tightly held beliefs by my family members, only to realize I didn't agree with anything they said. I am so thankful to that boy in class who put me in my place. I feel like he changed the course of my life that day. I grew up in an environment where the only way to be funny was to be mean. I wanted acceptance so badly that I mirrored behaviors I witnessed from adults without fully understanding their impact. Eventually, I realized that making fun of people is the absolute lowest hanging fruit, and there are plenty more creative ways to be funny that don't involve hurting others. Liz Lemon finding out she was the bully during her high school reunion was pretty revelatory to me. I was the bully. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of empathy when I was a kid, and I thought it was fun to put people down because I was bigger, stronger than them, so no one ever stood up to me. Then I was hospitalized for Steven Johnson syndrome, fully recovered without much real damage because we caught it relatively early, but man did it put me into a horrible depression. I'm convinced that was the turning point in my life, and now I say I'm overly empathetic to a fault. It sucks that it took such a terrible thing to shift me out of that mindset. But I'm happy with who I am as an adult. Not sure if it matters, but I have spoken to the main person I used to bully, and I am glad they were able to forgive me. Honestly, I had made a conscious decision to try to act like my own bullies because I thought maybe that's just how you get accepted. It wasn't. I hated it, and I feel bad about it decades later. I wonder how many people didn't realize they were being hurtful until much later. Self-awareness can be hard to develop as a kid. I was just a kid, but a random bystander told me I was mean. I was bullying my bullies, so I didn't really think much of it, but that caused me to actually think about it. Used the rest of my childhood and adulthood thinking inward and putting myself in other shoes. Now I get walked all over, but at least I like myself. Still bring out the old bully gloves for pieces of total crap though. Shame still works on some people, just like it did for me. Did acid when I was 18, essentially played the tape of my life in my head for hours, realized I was the asshole in most situations in my life, and that moment just stayed with me. It hit me hard at age 9 and I sobbed. Reflecting on my actions, which I knew were wrong, I was convinced I was a sociopath considered sides so young, until I realized that my private remorse was proof I wasn't. I'm still baffled by the cruelty I demonstrated at age 8. Like really fucked up shit. It was around that time I was myself bullied, so maybe that's part of it. Didn't realize it at the time. I was part of a group of friends, and in middle school we all bullied the same people together, and as ashamed as I am to say it now, I was laughing just as much as everyone else. It wasn't until high school, when I actually ended up befriending one of our former victims, that I started to feel bad. And as I learned more about the effects of bullying and the real damage victims suffer, up to and including suicide, I started to grasp the consequences of my actions. I've been mortified by younger mess behavior ever since.